JEM is my name, no one else is the same. JEM is my name. JEM.
In the same month that the 4th issue of Enter the Stingers came out, they started publishing the Misfits arc. I'm looking at a picture on my phone just to make sure I get everything right. The same month the final issue of Enter the Stingers came out, they published an annual for that year. Then, while they were publishing the Misfits, they were also publishing Truly Outrageous, and these arcs came out simultaneously. So, how are we going to handle this on this video review series? Well, we're going to finish out the Stingers. Is that the right one? That's the right one. We're going to finish out the Stingers, then we'll read the annual, then we'll read the Misfits, then we'll head on to Truly Outrageous, and then Infinite and Dimensions, I think, came out in sequence, so there was no overlap. So that's what we're doing, in case anyone was wondering how I'm handling this. Trying to read it in chronological, or at least publication order as best I can, but here's where it gets a little sticky. Alright, so our 3 titular bands are preparing for the 5x5 cruise ship party masquerade ball thing, where JEM and the Holograms and the Stingers are going to perform, and the Misfits are not, because as we recall, Riot conditioned his band signing with 5x5 on them dropping the Misfits. So the Misfits are no longer on that label. But they snuck in as the catering crew, or waiters, so that they can make mischief. What actually is the plan? Still don't seem to know. I don't know. I'm not clear if that's the joke, right? I don't know if that's the. It bothered me back in the, I think, the early Dark Gem, or I mentioned this when Pizzazz and the Misfits went to the Halloween party at the Holograms house, intent on causing trouble, but they didn't really have a plan, and no one knew what to do, and Pizzazz didn't even do anything. She just seemed to want to talk to JEM, but wasn't clear what about. So now she's like, aha, we're gonna be waiters, and then we're gonna do something. What? I don't know, but it's gonna be some. I'm not sure if that's the joke. It's not one I'm giggling at the very least. But all 3 bands are prepping for the show, and who knocks on the Holograms' door? But Rio! Hi, Rio! We haven't. I don't think we've seen you in this arc yet. You've been mentioned. It's been mentioned that Jerrica is dating you, and JEM is dating Riot, who I keep calling Rory. I mean, that is his name, but yeah. So, nice to see you again, buddy. What are you doing here? Oh, Jerrica said that you could go with her as her date to the band, that the ship masquerade ball thing that JEM's also at. Oh, well, that's a little awkward. Particularly because, well, for 2 reasons. Number one, Fox is there, the new drummer for the Holograms, and I would imagine that he's going to want to, hold your hand. I want to hold your hand. Beatles. And, like, I wonder if anyone watching, even the younger viewers, are like, I want to hold your hand. What is that? I've never heard that before. Beatles? Who are they? Want to hold your hand, put your arm around her, give a smooch on the holographic cheek, something like that. That ain't gonna work. So, multiple reasons. So, Aja corners, says, hey, wait outside, let me go see if she's here. And so she talks to JEM. And she's like, Jerrica's, Synergy, get a hologram of Jerrica going and she can go with. And Aja says, no, that's not going to work for the reasons I just stated. Oh no, that's not what she says. Let's see what she says. You promised me that you would stop trying to juggle both of these identities at the same time. We agreed that you could only be JEM or Jerrica. And we agreed that you have to break things off with either Riot or Rio. I told you, if you couldn't honor those promises, then we had to retire the JEM identity and stop using synergy altogether. You agreed. Now, if you're not reading along, you might think, well, golly, Andrew, that's some information maybe you should have mentioned in an earlier issue. Seems pertinent. Well, here's the thing. That's unless I am just blanking, that is the first I've heard of that. So, I mean, that's a really interesting conundrum. That's that's juicy material. That is prime meat for drama, but it's not set up properly. Imagine if we got to see Jerrica dating Rio and how that was going, and JEM dating Riot and how that was going. Now, we've seen Jerrica dating Rio before, and so we know how they interact, but how's it going now that she's also dating Riot? We've actually never seen JEM date Riot. We don't know how they interact. That might be interesting to see. Imagine if we got to see those episodes. And we got to see this conversation with Aja and I guess the rest of the holograms about you've got to choose. You know, if you pick one or the other. If you pull this crap again, we got to shut off synergy and retire JEM. Imagine as a reader how you would have acted if you turn the page and Rio comes down the walk and you're like, oh no, oh no. You want to read like this, ooh, but instead we're reading like, huh? That's not ideal. Now, the reason I opened this particular video with all of this is I'm getting the sense that the production of this series was pressed for time. Like, I don't know why they released two different arcs at the same time. My feeling, as I'd mentioned in previous videos, reviews, there's a lot of stuff that's just coming out of nowhere and is not set. I like where the characters are. I like what we're doing with the characters. I think they're in interesting positions on the board, right? Which makes for an interesting game. It just wasn't set up properly. It feels like there's some issues missing. And it's completely possible that they just didn't have the real estate for it. They didn't have the page count. Maybe they wanted the Enter the Stingers arc to be 8 issues and they only got 5. Maybe someone from the top said, hey, you get X number of issues in X number of months. And they said, well, that's more issues than we've got months. And they said, yeah, tough cookies, figure it out. And that's why we get this weird stuff where these arcs are published simultaneously. This one starts before this one ends. The annual comes out in the middle of it. I don't know what the behind the scenes are, and I don't want to say anything like, they're robbing us of the primo JEM reading experience. No, they're not thieves. I have a feeling that stuff happened and this was the best they can do. And that's unfortunate. Because as I said, I like where everything is, but reading this is kind of frustrating. Hey, you remember how the last issue ended? With Dahlia, or Fox, which is her name, slinking off into the Benton home shadows to dig up dirt on the holograms, and she goes into the room where the jukebox is that hides Synergy, and she's about to fuss around. That was the cliffhanger of the previous issue. You know what comes of that? Nothing. Nothing. Huh. I guess she didn't find anything. She does have a line later when she betrays the holograms. She says, let's see, you do have some bizarre secrets I wish I had more time to get to the bottom of. Yeah, oh, okay, so I guess she just couldn't figure it out. So, as we know, Fox was hired, or just asked nicely by Pizzazz to fuss with the holograms. And, so what's the master plan here? Well, she didn't dig up any dirt. She knows there's some secrets, but she isn't sure what. So what's the entire plan here? Well, the Stingers go on stage. They do their set. Right before the holograms go on stage, she drops out. You know, she mic drops her drumsticks, and she says, "Ha ha! You fools! I was never your drummer the entire time! Pizzazz sends her regard. Now, fail on stage and be embarrassed. Mwahaha!" I mean, okay. That's, it's kind of boring. It's really not that interesting. And it wouldn't be that effective either. I mean, what's going to happen? Well, I mean, you could just play without percussion. You could do that. But what would probably happen is you'd go on stage and just say, "Hey, everyone, we're very sorry, but our drummer just decided not to play with us. I know you were looking forward to hearing some Gem and the Holograms, but our drummer, Pizzazz, hired her to pretend to be our drummer, and she just dropped out, so we can't do our set. Hey, Stingers, can you come back and do a few more songs for these lovely people, since Pizzazz and the Fox just were jerks?" And yeah, I mean, that's what would happen. This isn't really that big of a deal. Especially since this isn't like a huge concert venue where people paid $80 per ticket. At least I don't think they paid a lot of money. This is just a 5x5 party. There's probably a door charge or something, but I imagine most people are there for the costumes and for the food. And yeah, they're there for the free entertainment too, but I mean, if one of the bands can't go on, it's like, eh. You know, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I mean, it's not like it's not a deal at all. It's just like, oh, it's just kind of boring. The the Misfits rather are talking about. Let me see if I can find it, because there was actually an interesting aside, which. Where are they? There are they. No, that's Stingers. You'd think I'd recognize them. There we go. They seem to be, one of the things Pizzazz says, is she's, like, targeting Gem and the Holograms mostly to get back at 5x5. She has something in here, it's like, "I'm going to destroy the thing that they love," like, you know, more than me. And I'm like, that's a more interesting angle, and that seems more Pizzazzy, right? You know, something that she as a character, you know, because she's got, you know, all those relationship and abandonment problems. You know, 5x5 was another relationship that she found that she couldn't count on. 5x5 says, "I like this person better than you, and I'm dropping you like a hot potato." So she's like, "Oh yeah? Oh yeah? Well, I'm going to destroy that thing that you love so much." That feels more Pizzazz, but it seems to go wishy-wash back and forth between, "I hate the holograms because that's what the Stingers like," or that's what, It's just, and again, it's still not clear what they're just standing around. They're not doing anything. She doesn't even know what she's doing there. It's weird. Meanwhile, in Milan, Regine and Shayna decide to put on their own fashion show, I guess, and it goes pretty well. And the a lady, Francesca Zingari, hands them their business card and says, "Hey, you guys are great. Call me." And they go, "Yeah, we're your interns." And she's like, "Huh. Well, call me anyway." So, all right. Well, yeah. So, one more issue of this arc. We'll see how it ends.